Welcome to another deep dive, this time into the world of childhood development and parenting.
Oh, absolutely.
Specifically, we're taking a close look at Philippa Perry's book, The Book You Wish Your Parents Had Read,
Mm.
and we'll be unpacking its insights and,
Mm.
thinking about how they might resonate with your own experiences.
It's such a insightful read, and one of the things that really struck me is how Perry emphasizes the profound impact our own childhood experiences have on how we approach parenting.
Yeah.
It's almost like those unresolved feelings from our past, they kind of resurface in ways we might not expect, especially when we're interacting with our kids.
I love how Perry uses that chain analogy
Yes.
to
Yeah.
illustrate this point. Like, we're all links in this generational chain,
Mm,
and the shape of our link is really molded by our experiences, especially those early ones.
precisely.
Hmm.
And if we don't address those lingering emotions from our own childhood, they can sometimes lead to these kind of exaggerated responses in the present.
Oh, for sure.
Like, one example that comes to mind is Tay, the therapist featured in the book. She finds herself getting irrationally angry with her daughter, Emily, and as Perry kind of delves deeper, we discover that Tay, felt unloved by her own parents growing up. So when Emily does something that triggers those old wounds, Tay's reaction, it's not really about what Emily did. It's
Yeah.
more about her own unresolved pain.
It's fascinating, isn't it?
It is.
How those past experiences can kind of bubble up in
Yeah.
those unexpected ways. But one thing I find so empowering about Perry's approach is this idea of rupture and repair,
Oh, absolutely.
right? It's not about being this perfect parent, which none of us are.
Right.
It's about recognizing that these ruptures,
Yeah.
misunderstandings, miscommunications, hurt feelings, they're bound to happen
They're gonna happen.
in any close relationship. But it's the repair that really matters.
It's the repair. That's where the magic happens.
Yeah.
It's about owning up to our mistakes,
Mm-hmm.
offering a genuine apology, and really truly acknowledging our children's feelings.
And Perry highlights that these acts of repair, they can be incredibly healing even years later.
Even years later.
So it's never too late to kind of go back
Yeah, but you're too late.
and address those past hurts.
Yeah.
If we go back to the example of Tay and Emily,
Mm-hmm.
Tay ultimately recognizes where her anger is stemming from
Right.
and apologizes to Emily, validating her experience and kind of repairing the damage caused by that outburst.
And it's such a powerful example of, taking responsibility for the hurt that we might inflict, sometimes even unintentionally.
It really is.
Yeah.
And it kind of brings us to this broader point about empathy.
Absolutely.
Right? Really stepping into our children's emotional world, even when their behavior might be triggering for us personally.
Yeah. And Perry has this really interesting suggestion here. She urges us to examine our own childhoods as a way to cultivate empathy.
Mm.
Because by understanding our own emotional history, we can better grasp and connect with our children's feelings.
And I think that's so powerful.
Hmm.
Because so often we get caught up in the, day-to-day chaos of parenting
Yeah.
that we forget to kind of pause and reflect on our own experiences.
Exactly.
There's another individual in the book, Mark,
Okay.
who is having difficulty connecting with his child. And as Perry digs deeper, we discover that it stems from, unresolved issues related to his own father leaving when he was young.
Hmm.
So by confronting his past, Mark gains this deeper self-understanding, and that enables him to actually have more empathy for his child's needs.
Right, because he's kind of working through those past wounds.
Exactly. Now, another thing Perry feels really strongly about is acknowledging a child's feelings, even the messy ones,
Yeah.
ones that are difficult for us as parents to deal with. She really cautions against dismissing or negating those emotional experiences.
And there's a very good reason for that. Suppressing emotions, especially during childhood, it can have these really detrimental long-term consequences. The book talks about Lucas. He's described as an orchid child, a
Yeah.
sensitive boy who becomes withdrawn and depressed because his parents consistently dismiss his feelings
Oh,
about both of them working.
that's heartbreaking.
It is. It's a reminder that, those feelings are valid even if they're difficult for us as parents to handle.
So how do we actually validate a child's emotions?
Well, think of it as providing a secure container for their feelings.
Okay.
Imagine a parent who calmly and understandingly creates space for their child's big emotions,
Yeah.
guiding them through those experiences without judgment or making them feel overwhelmed. That's what validation looks like in action.
It's not about fixing it.
No,
It's not about saying, "Oh, you're fine. It's
exactly.
okay, we'll go over it."
It's about saying, you know, hey, it sounds like you had a really rough day.
Right.
I'm here for you. Tell me about it.
The book contrasts these two approaches,
Mhm.
right? You have the healthy response,
Mm-hmm.
and then you have the dismissive response.
Right.
And it's so clear how that validation just creates this sense of security and
Yes.
relief for the child.
Absolutely.
One of the things I found most interesting was Perry's critique of this constant pursuit of happiness,
Oh, yeah.
especially in parenting. She suggests that this relentless chase for happiness, it can actually be an obstacle to a truly fulfilling life.
What I find really compelling is her stance on embracing the full spectrum of emotions, both the joy and the pain, both for ourselves and for our children.
Right?
She argues that welcoming those difficult emotions, the sadness, the anger, the fear, it actually helps us build resilience and grow as individuals.
It's a powerful idea, isn't it?
It is. It goes against that kind of, consumerist ideal of happiness that we're often bombarded with.
Absolutely. The book suggests that genuine fulfillment comes from
Yeah.
those meaningful connections and really embracing the full tapestry of life.
Exactly. And that leads us to a really interesting concept that Perry introduces called diaphobia, which she defines as an aversion to emotional discomfort, especially in others.
And I imagine that has big implications for parenting.
Whoa, absolutely. Especially when you consider that children are these little bundles of big emotions.
Right.
So when diaphobia shows up in parenting, it can lead to us kind of, you know, avoiding genuine connection and those important turn-taking interactions that are so crucial for development.
We see this play out with Jo in the book,
Okay.
who initially struggles with diaphobia. She discovers that by allowing space for her daughter's emotions, instead of constantly trying to cheer her up or distract her,
Right.
it actually strengthens their bond
Yeah.
and brings more satisfaction to the relationship.
It's a beautiful illustration of how creating room for discomfort can actually deepen intimacy and connection.
So we've talked about emotions. Let's shift gears a bit and talk about behavior.
Okay.
Perry makes this really striking statement.
Hmm.
She says, all behavior is communication,
That's a powerful one.
right? She challenges those labels of good and bad children and instead encourages us to view behavior as language.
As a language that needs to be understood.
Exactly.
She wants us to decode those challenging behaviors, to see them not as deliberate acts of defiance,
Right.
but as expressions of unmet needs or struggles to navigate, tricky situations.
I love the example in the book about Eof.
Okay.
She has this seemingly naughty episode, but when you dig deeper, you realize it's actually rooted in frustration caused by a disrupted routine.
Right. It's about looking beyond the surface.
Exactly.
And trying to understand that message behind the behavior.
And this leads us to Perry's idea that we need to move beyond that traditional control-based approach to parenting.
Yeah. She's a big advocate for collaboration over control.
Collaboration over control.
Working with children rather than trying to dominate them.
It's not do this because I said so.
Yeah.
It's, hey, we have a problem here.
Let's figure this out together.
Exactly.
And the book contrasts these two approaches. You have the power struggle over the messy room.
Yes.
And then you have the collaborative effort where the parent and child work together.
And not only do they end up with a clean room,
Yes,
but their bond is strengthened through that process.
exactly. It's about fostering those essential life skills, problem-solving, communication, cooperation.
It's about respecting children as individuals with their own thoughts, feelings,
Yes.
perspectives.
It's a partnership.
It is. And finally, Perry really dismantles this myth of the perfect parent.
Oh, the perfect parent doesn't exist.
Right. She emphasizes self-compassion
Yes.
and repair, acknowledging that we all make mistakes in this journey of parenthood.
We're all going to mess up.
We are.
And that's okay.
It's about learning from those missteps.
Yes.
And mending those ruptures with our children.
It's about building stronger relationships through honesty and vulnerability.
The book shares Sheena's story, a mother who has difficulty bonding with one of her twins after a traumatic birth. And it's such a moving testament to how acknowledging the past, modifying behaviors, embracing repair,
It can lead to healing.
can lead to healing and connection.
Absolutely. It's never too late to make amends and strengthen those vital connections with our children.
It's a powerful message of hope and resilience.
It really is. And it's never too late to make amends and strengthen those vital connections with our children. Perry's insights provide a solid framework, but they also encourage us to think critically and adapt these principles to our specific situations.
Yeah, and I appreciate how she emphasizes, trusting our intuition and carefully observing our children. She talks about this in the context of childbirth and breastfeeding specifically, this fascinating phenomenon called the breast crawl. Have you come across that concept?
Oh, yes, it's quite remarkable. Studies have shown that newborns, when they're placed on their mother's abdomen shortly after birth, they actually possess this intrinsic ability to locate the breast and initiate breastfeeding on their own.
It's almost like this instinctual drive
Yeah.
toward connection and nourishment.
It's amazing.
And Perry suggests that by allowing babies to follow this natural impulse, it's a powerful way to cultivate trust and respect from the very beginning.
Absolutely. It's about recognizing their agency
Mm-hmm.
and allowing them to actively participate in this really fundamental process rather than just being, passive recipients.
What happens when that initial bonding doesn't feel so instantaneous?
Right.
Perry acknowledges that not all parents experience that immediate surge of love,
Oh, yeah.
and she stresses the importance of seeking support during those moments.
Absolutely.
She talks about Mia, a mother who initially struggles to connect with her baby.
Mm-hmm.
She feels like she's just pretending to be bonded,
Hmm.
and this lack of genuine connection leads to these feelings of isolation and despair.
Yeah, it's a reminder that, there's no single right way to feel,
Right.
and that reaching out for help when we're struggling is not a weakness. It's actually a testament to our strength.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
And Perry emphasizes the value of having that supportive network, friends, family therapists, fellow parents.
Your village?
Exactly.
Yeah.
People who can just listen without judgment
Yes.
and provide a safe space to process those complex emotions.
It's so important.
She also discusses the role of the non-working parent or caregiver in providing that essential emotional support,
Right.
suggesting that the working parent might inadvertently trigger those feelings of abandonment
Yeah, when they leave for work.
in the baby.
Yeah.
So it's about, being attuned to the baby's emotions.
Yes.
Acknowledging their sadness, reassuring them that the working parent will return,
Validating those feelings.
validating their feelings and fostering that sense of security.
It's about helping them understand and navigate those big emotions, even when they don't have the words to express them yet.
And that emotional support, it's not just for babies,
No.
right? Parents need that understanding and validation
From each other?
from their partners,
Yeah.
friends, family.
Absolutely.
She talks about the exhaustion that can arise when parents are constantly giving but not receiving adequate support in return.
Right. It's like that airplane oxygen mask analogy,
Think about yourself.
Take care of yourself first so you can then take care of others.
Exactly. And this is especially crucial, I think, when you're navigating those often overwhelming emotions of new parenthood.
Oh, for sure. And Perry talks about the hormonal fluctuations
Yeah.
that happen during pregnancy and postpartum
Mm.
and how they can really magnify emotions,
Everything just feels more intense.
Everything's heightened.
And so those unexpected urges to cry during a commercial
Yeah.
or those overwhelming feelings of anxiety, it's not that you're losing control.
Right.
It's that your emotional system is just more sensitive during this period.
It's a physiological response.
It is.
Yeah.
And I think that's reassuring for new parents
Absolutely.
who might be, wrestling with guilt or inadequacy.
Yeah. Feeling like they're not experiencing that, blissful, picture-perfect version of parenthood.
Perry also addresses the very real struggle with loneliness
Mm.
that so many new parents face. That tendency to withdraw socially.
It's almost like a primal instinct.
It is. It's like isolation feels safer
Yeah.
than risking judgment or rejection.
But she reminds us that, we are social beings.
We are.
And connection is so vital for our well-being, especially during times of stress and transition.
So what are some practical tips?
Well, she encourages parents to acknowledge those feelings of isolation
Mm-hmm.
without judging themselves, to challenge those self-critical thoughts
Right.
that might be preventing them from reaching out, and to consider joining support groups
Yeah.
or engaging in activities that provide opportunities for connection.
Get out there.
Get out there.
And she also emphasizes the importance of having those open and honest conversations
Yes.
about the less glamorous aspects of parenthood.
Finding those safe spaces where you
Yeah.
can talk about the frustrations, the anxieties, even those unacceptable thoughts
Without shame.
without fear of judgment.
She shares some really powerful stories about parents struggling with intrusive thoughts or even feelings of resentment towards their babies.
And it's a reminder that these experiences are more common than we might think,
Yeah.
and that talking about them can be so liberating.
And Perry also talks about the importance of creating a narrative that helps us make sense of those difficult emotions.
It's not about denying or suppressing them.
Right.
It's about finding a way to understand and integrate them into our experience.
One of the most powerful examples she gives is Paula's story,
Okay.
a mother who experiences severe postpartum depression.
Hmm.
Initially, she tries to hide her struggles,
Mm-hmm.
putting on a brave face and telling everyone she's fine.
Right.
But eventually she reaches a breaking point and she seeks therapy.
And through therapy, she's able to, explore those painful feelings and start to heal.
Yeah.
She finds a narrative that helps her make sense of her experience and ultimately develops a deeper sense of self-acceptance and a stronger bond with her son.
It's such a powerful testament to the power of vulnerability
Yes.
and support and the willingness to confront those difficult emotions.
It's okay to not be okay.
It is. And Perry also delves into this fascinating realm of nonverbal communication,
Mm-hmm.
particularly the interplay of reciprocity and turn-taking that happens between babies and their caregivers.
Like a dance.
It is.
Hmm.
And she argues that these early interactions, they form the foundation for healthy relationships and communication patterns throughout life.
From the very beginning, we're
Right.
setting the stage.
She uses the example of that simple game of looking at each other
Yeah.
and then looking away.
Where the baby and the parent take turns initiating the interaction.
Right. It's so simple, but it's so profound.
It is. And Perry emphasizes that, responding to those cues and
Mhm.
engaging in those turn-taking interactions. It's crucial for fostering secure attachment and
Yeah.
healthy emotional development. And she cautions against diaphobia, that aversion to discomfort, which can lead parents to avoid these really important moments of connection.
It's about being fully present with our babies and children, putting aside those distractions like phones and screens.
Be in the moment.
Exactly.
Let the rest of the world fade away.
She tells this lovely story about Joe,
Okay.
a parent who discovers the transformative power
Mm-hmm.
of just creating space for her daughter's emotions.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of constantly trying to cheer her up or distract her, Joe learns to just listen,
Be present.
validate,
Hold space.
be present with her daughter's full range of feelings.
And the result is a deeper bond,
Yes,
a greater sense of fulfillment, and a newfound ease in their relationship.
it's beautiful. And speaking of distractions, let's talk about screens for a moment.
Okay.
Perry doesn't shy away from discussing the potential downsides of excessive screen time,
Especially for young children.
especially for young children.
Yeah.
She argues that those captivating screens, they can disrupt those vital turn-taking interactions
Yeah.
and hinder a child's developing capacity for dialogue.
It's not about demonizing technology,
Right.
but it's about being mindful of its impact
And setting healthy boundaries.
and modeling those healthy habits ourselves.
Exactly, putting down our own devices.
Yes.
Engaging in those face-to-face interactions.
Right, because those are the interactions that are crucial for a child's social and emotional development.
And when screen time is allowed,
Mhm.
it's about being selective.
Choosing quality over quantity.
Exactly. Choosing those interactive and educational programs over passive viewing.
It's about creating a family culture that values those shared experiences and those unplugged moments of connection.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
Now let's move on to a topic that's near and dear to my heart, play.
Oh, play is so important.
Perry highlights its profound significance in a child's development. She argues that play, it's not just frivolous entertainment.
It's the work of childhood.
It is.
It's how they learn and grow.
She encourages parents to resist that urge to overschedule their children's lives.
Give them time for unstructured play.
Yes. Child-directed play.
Let them lead.
Let them lead. And she talks about providing a stimulating environment,
Yes.
but also cautions against overwhelming them with too many toys.
Right. Sometimes less is more.
Less is more. She gives this wonderful example of a child who's more captivated by an empty lemon juice container
That's great.
than a whole collection of expensive toys.
It's about sparking their imagination.
It is. It's about trusting their innate capacity for exploration and discovery
Letting them take the lead.
and stepping back when our intervention isn't necessary.
Sometimes we just need to get out of the way.
We do. Now, Perry also offers some guidance on navigating those tricky moments when a child's behavior becomes challenging
Right.
or disruptive.
Yeah.
She reiterates her belief that all behavior is communication.
It's a message.
It's a message. And she encourages us to view those challenging behaviors not as deliberate acts of defiance.
But as attempts to communicate something,
Exactly.
unmet needs or struggles with difficult situations,
So it's about decoding those behaviors,
observing patterns
observing
as
patterns,
triggers, and really trying to understand what's going on underneath.
and remaining regulated ourselves,
Yeah.
avoiding those knee-jerk reactions.
That can escalate things.
That can escalate things.
Yeah.
One of the most practical strategies she suggests is to actually articulate the child's feelings,
Put words to their emotions.
help them express their experience and validate those emotions.
So instead of saying, stop yelling, you're being naughty,
Right.
we might say, I can see that you're really upset right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay to feel angry, but we need to find a safe way to express those feelings.
That's so much more helpful.
It is. It's about helping them develop emotional literacy
Right.
and giving them the tools to manage those big feelings.
She also emphasizes the importance of setting clear boundaries,
Absolutely.
but doing so with empathy and understanding.
Right. It's about defining ourselves
Defining ourselves.
rather than defining the child.
So instead of saying, you're being selfish,
Right.
we might say, I need you to share the toys because it's important to me that everyone gets a turn.
It's about communicating our needs and expectations clearly while still respecting the child's perspective.
And consistency is key.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. Those empty threats and inconsistent boundaries.
They just create confusion.
They do. And they diminish our credibility.
Right. The child doesn't know what to expect.
And she also encourages us to avoid power struggles.
Choose collaboration.
Choose collaboration. Work with our children to find solutions.
Be partners in problem solving.
Exactly. She gives a great example of a parent and child working together to clean a messy room.
Instead of butting heads,
Right.
they brainstorm solutions.
They negotiate compromises.
And they end up with both a tidy space and a stronger connection.
It's a win-win.
It is.
Perry also tackles the dreaded tantrum,
Oh, tantrum.
offering a really compassionate perspective.
They're tough.
They are. But she reminds us that tantrums, they're not deliberate attempts to manipulate or control.
Right.
It's just that they haven't developed the skills yet.
They're overwhelmed.
They-
don't know how to handle those big feelings.
And so she stresses the importance of us remaining calm,
Regulated.
regulated, avoiding those reactive responses.
That can make things worse.
Exactly. And she encourages us to offer comfort and support.
To be a safe harbor.
Right. Even in the midst of that emotional storm.
So validating their feelings, offering physical touch, a safe space to calm down, and then once the storm has passed, helping them process what happened and develop strategies for coping with those big feelings in the future.
It's about teaching them those emotional regulation skills.
Right. Giving them the tools they need.
And she also gives some helpful tips on preventing tantrums.
Like recognizing triggers.
Recognizing triggers, anticipating their needs, offering choices and control whenever possible.
Creating an environment that minimizes frustration and empowers them to feel heard and understood.
Now, Perry also delves into the world of parenting older children and teenagers,
The teenage years.
acknowledging those unique challenges and opportunities that come with that stage.
It's a whole new ballgame.
It is, and she reminds us that adolescence is a time of immense transformation.
Physical, emotional, social.
It's a lot.
It is. And those changes can manifest in behaviors that can be, perplexing, frustrating, or even alarming to parents.
She encourages us to try to remember what it was like to be a teenager ourselves.
To tap into that teenage angst.
Right, navigating those intense emotions,
Testing boundaries.
forging our own identities.
The time of self-discovery.
It is. And she
Well-
also emphasizes the importance of maintaining that connection with our teenagers.
Even when they push us away.
Even when they push us away. Finding those opportunities for shared activities.
Listening without judgment.
Offering support and guidance without being overly controlling.
Finding that balance.
Finding that balance. She acknowledges that setting boundaries with teenagers,
It can be tricky.
it can be tricky. It's different than with younger children.
But she reiterates that importance of continuing to define ourselves
Right.
rather than defining them.
So instead of saying, you're being irresponsible, we might try, I'm concerned about your safety when you stay out late.
I need you to be home by 11.
It's about clear communication,
Yes.
but also respect for their growing independence.
Right. And keeping those lines of communication open.
And she offers some advice for navigating those inevitable conflicts.
Because there will be conflicts.
There will be.
Oh.
She encourages us to avoid power struggles.
Stay calm.
stay calm and regulated.
And really listen.
Listen.
Try to understand their perspective.
She suggests brainstorming solutions together,
Negotiating compromises.
finding those win-win solutions.
Where everyone feels heard and respected.
It's about transitioning from that parent-child dynamic.
To a more adult-to-adult relationship.
Exactly. And it's about remembering that even as our teenagers strive for independence, they still need our love and support.
And guidance.
Perry offers some insights into the teenage brain,
Okay.
explaining that the prefrontal cortex...
It's the part responsible for impulse control and decision-making.
Right, it's still developing.
It's a work in progress.
During adolescence. So that helps explain why teenagers sometimes engage in those risky or impulsive behaviors.
It's not that they're trying to be defiant or reckless.
Right.
Their brains are just still wiring those connections.
So patience and understanding are key.
Absolutely.
Recognizing that they're still learning to regulate their emotions.
Yeah, and make sound decisions.
Now, one of the most interesting concepts Perry introduces is this idea of parental lying.
Oh, okay.
Exploring the consequences of, withholding information or telling white lies to protect our children.
We've all done it.
I think we have.
Yeah.
And she argues that while our intentions might be good,
Yeah.
those acts of deception,
They can erode trust.
they can. She shares a story about a family who keeps the truth about their son's biological father a secret, believing they're shielding him from pain.
But it backfires.
If it backfires,
Yeah.
it creates more problems than it solves.
It's a reminder that honesty, even when it's tough, is essential for building strong relationships.
And she also delves into the topic of children's lying,
Right.
exploring the reasons why they might engage in that behavior. She reminds us that lying, it's often a developmental stage.
A way to test boundaries,
Assert their independence.
protect themselves from punishment or disapproval.
Right. So she encourages us to avoid overreacting to those little white lies,
Right.
recognizing that they're often a normal part of development.
And that a punitive approach can actually backfire.
It can, creating more secrecy and distrust.
Right. Driving that behavior underground.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Instead, she advocates for a more understanding and collaborative approach.
Exploring the reasons behind the lie.
Right.
Working together to find solutions.
She tells this great story about her own daughter lying about her whereabouts as a teenager. And instead of getting angry, Perry listens to her daughter's explanation.
Right.
And realizes that the lie stemmed from a desire for more freedom and autonomy.
Which is a natural part of adolescence.
It is.
Yeah.
And it reminds us that even as our children mature,
Yeah.
they still need our understanding.
Our empathy.
And guidance.
As they navigate those choppy waters of adolescence.
And that our relationship with them is this ongoing journey
Of
growth,
discovery.
and repair and repair. And speaking of repair, Perry emphasizes the importance of setting clear boundaries throughout childhood.
Absolutely.
Not just for our children's safety, but also to help them develop self-control.
Respect for others.
Respect for others, a sense of responsibility.
It's about teaching them how to navigate the world.
It is. And she reminds us that boundaries are not about controlling our children,
but about defining ourselves and our limits.
So it's about communicating those boundaries calmly and firmly.
Avoiding empty threats.
Being consistent in our enforcement.
Right. Follow through.
Follow through. She also stresses the importance of offering empathy and understanding when a child pushes those boundaries.
Because often there's a reason behind it.
There is.
Unmet needs, lack of skills.
So instead of resorting to punishment or shame,
Right.
we might try validating their feelings.
Offering choices.
Offering alternative choices.
Collaborating to find solutions.
Collaborating to find solutions that work for everyone.
It's a team effort.
It is.
Yeah.
And Perry also provides some great insights into the importance of modeling the behaviors we want to see in our children.
Leading by example.
Leading by example, she emphasizes the power of our own actions and attitudes in shaping our children's values, beliefs, and behaviors.
They're watching us.
They are. Even when we don't realize it.
Absorbing everything.
So if we want our children to be kind, respectful, responsible,
we have to embody those qualities ourselves.
we have to. If we want them to manage their emotions effectively,
We need to show them how it's done.
we need to show them how it's done. If we want them to be honest and trustworthy,
We need to be truthful and transparent.
it's a powerful reminder that our influence as parents, it goes way beyond our words.
Our actions speak louder.
They do. And that's responsibility we should never take lightly.
It's a privilege and a challenge.
It is. One of the things I appreciate most about Perry's approach is her emphasis on the individuality of each child
Yes.
and each parent-child relationship.
No two are the same.
No two are the same. She reminds us that there's no one-size-fits-all approach to parenting.
What works for one family might not work for another.
And she encourages us to trust our intuition,
Observe our children closely.
adapt these principles to our unique circumstances.
Find what works for you.
Find what works for you. And she also stresses the importance of self-compassion.
Give yourself a break.
Give yourself a break.
Mm?
Recognizing that we all make mistakes as parents.
It's not about perfection.
It's not about perfection.
It's about being willing to learn and grow.
And repair those inevitable ruptures.
That happen in any close relationship.
She reminds us that parenting is a journey, not a destination.
It's ongoing.
It is
Ever evolving.
And the most important thing is to approach it with love.
Empathy.
Empathy and a willingness to keep evolving.
We keep learning.
This has been such a rich exploration of Perry's work.
It has been. She offers such an honest and compassionate perspective on parenting.
She does.
Challenging conventional wisdom, encouraging us to approach these relationships with greater understanding,
Yeah.
empathy, and a willingness to embrace the messiness of it all.
The messy beauty.
The messy beauty of it all.
So before we wrap up,
Okay.
let's take a moment to distill
Yeah.
10 key takeaways
Love it.
from our deep dive into the book you wish your parents had read.
Okay. Let's see.
I mean, we've covered so much today, from how our own childhoods shape our parenting, to the importance of validating our children's feelings, to the power of play, and the complexities of setting boundaries and nonverbal communication. It's been quite a journey.
It really has. And running through all of it is this thread of understanding and acceptance, both for ourselves as parents and for our children.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Accepting ourselves and our children as these, intricate, imperfect, constantly evolving beings.
Yeah. Yeah, letting go of that perfect parent illusion and embracing the messiness, the unpredictability, and ultimately the incredible rewards of parenthood.
One of Perry's points that I found particularly thought-provoking is this idea that maybe sometimes as parents we overemphasize a child's need for attention, and we don't give enough weight to their need for space and solitude.
That's a really interesting point. We're often so focused on providing stimulation and engagement that we might overlook the importance of just letting kids have some quiet time.
Yeah, we live in such a fast-paced, hyper-connected world.
We do.
It's easy to assume that our children need that same level of constant engagement.
Right, but what if they actually crave a bit of peace and quiet sometimes?
What if those moments of solitude are crucial for their, creativity, for self-discovery, for emotional well-being?
It's something to consider for sure. It speaks to that idea of really tuning into our children's individual needs.
Absolutely, observing them carefully and creating an environment that balances connection with solitude.
It's like in nature, there are these cycles of activity and rest, connection and separation.
That's a beautiful way to put it. And it reminds me of what Perry says about trusting our instincts as parents and really observing our children, letting go of those preconceived notions of how things should be.
And allowing ourselves to be guided by our children's unique rhythms and needs.
Exactly. They have so much to teach us if we're open to learning.
They do. It's a two-way street, this parenting journey.
It is. So as promised, let's distill 10 key takeaways from our deep dive into the book you wish your parents had read. First, our own childhood experiences, they really do shape how we parent.
They inform our reactions, our behaviors, often in ways we don't even realize.
Yeah. Second, embracing that concept of rupture and repair is essential.
It's not about being perfect. It's about acknowledging our mistakes and taking responsibility for them.
Third, empathy is paramount.
Really stepping into our children's emotional world, even when it's challenging.
Fourth, validating a child's feelings, even the tough ones, is crucial.
It's about accepting their emotions without judgment.
Fifth, accepting a full range of emotions, both for ourselves and for our children, is key to resilience and living fulfilling lives.
We shouldn't shy away from those difficult emotions, but rather learn to navigate them constructively.
Sixth, diaphobia, or the aversion to discomfort, can hinder genuine connection with our kids.
We have to be willing to embrace some discomfort to foster those deep bonds.
Seventh, all behavior is communication. Challenging behaviors are often a way for children to express unmet needs.
It's our job to try to understand those messages.
Eighth, collaboration over control is a more effective and fulfilling approach to parenting.
Working with our kids, not against them.
Ninth, the perfect parent doesn't exist. We all make mistakes.
Self-compassion is key, and a willingness to repair those inevitable ruptures.
And finally, our 10th takeaway, while Perry emphasizes meeting a child's need for attention, it's equally important to recognize their need for space and solitude.
Finding that balance can be crucial for their development and well-being.
Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the fascinating world of parent-child relationships.
It's been a pleasure exploring these ideas with you.
It really has. And to all our listeners out there, we hope this conversation has given you some food for thought and maybe even inspired you to approach your own parenting journey with a renewed sense of curiosity and compassion.
Remember, it's an ongoing process of learning and growth, and we're all in this together.